All right, peace, peace, peace. Welcome to a new episode of the Mixed Metals Podcast. I'm your humble host, Quan, aka Hard to Find. As a matter of fact, let's get that changed. Perfect. All right. So a few things to talk about. I may or may not go on a little rant later on this episode. You may or may not hear DoorDash knock on the door, and you may or may not hear my dog bark after that. Um, so just just be on the lookout for those things. Let's get into college. Of course, I told y'all what was going to happen. Alabama did end up beating Georgia once again. Um, this time in Athens for the first time since 2015. It being in Athens. I think last year was the first time it was in Tuscaloosa since like '08. Um, you just think about the many times that Alabama and Georgia have played each other over the years, especially in the Kirby and Nick Saban eras. And you realize that most of the time they've played has been in Atlanta. Um, but yeah, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, had a 33 game win streak on the line at home. Um, Kirby's record was 1-6 overall against Alabama. And I don't, I'll get to it later, but I don't want people to pile on to Kirby Smart. And it's gonna sound like I'm kind of being trying to be a dick, but I promise I'm not. Um, anyway, Alabama did pull out the game 24-21. Alabama did not score second half, but they didn't have to. Um, they went up 14-0 early. And I won't say cruise because they scored another 10 points, but kind of, coasted uh, for the most part from there. That won't work against other schools. And you play that game again, it might not work against Georgia. So they got to get that handled. I do think that this is a high power offense. Um, I'm trying to look for. There we go. Okay. Um, so let's search this twice. Okay. I do apologize about that. So Alabama coasted the rest of the way after building a 14 point lead on the road. That kind of got the crowd out of it by that point. Uh, and I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of people there. So it is what it is. But you take the crowd out of it, and then it becomes a more of a neutral site. Um, I'm gonna look to see exactly how many people were there. Uh, let's see. Okay, not quite 100,000, but 93,033 people. Um, so yeah, I mean, once you take the crowd out of it, it becomes anyone's game, and especially in the SEC, and especially these two teams. Um, it's just who was more prepared, who was who made the least amount of mistakes. Alabama had one false start penalty the whole way, which is, I mean, that's the first time I think I heard in the Kalen DeBoer era that Alabama had less penalties than their opponent. Um, I think it's a sign of good things to come. I think that Kalen DeBoer finally has like his identity as a coach together at Alabama anyway. Um, I mean his identity, like his reputation preceded him. Definitely, he had a tremendous record overall. Uh, so yeah, I just think that's just more of the same again. But um, I'm really proud of the way Alabama came out and and kind of didn't hold back and didn't let the moment get too big for them. And Georgia, I think that may be one of possibly two losses for Georgia this season. So that may be we may end up seeing a rematch of that. We may not, but I'm thinking that we will. I think that Alabama maybe loses one more game this season. Um, and with that being that first SEC game, I'm proud of what I saw, but there's always room for improvement, and I'm sure that the coaches and the whole staff and the team takes that into account. Uh, but yeah, to me, the game of the weekend definitely. Um, Although the Oregon and Penn State game did go to overtime, I kind of think that James Franklin is just he just has a big game problem. And that's sad to see because I think he's a great coach. And that's a tough task taking over for Joe Paterno. Uh, so I hopefully he gets that figured out. I don't want him to ever beat Ohio State in a championship scenario. So there is that. But um, I just I hope that he can get over the hump in some way, in some form or fashion. Uh, Alabama does play Vanderbilt this week in Tuscaloosa. Um, Now we understand that the Alabama is undefeated under Kalen DeBoer at home, but that means nothing. You know, um, the second year into your tenure, um, anything can happen. Anything can happen, especially in the SEC. I know I keep stressing that, but there's no league in sports like the SEC. So you just got to take that into account. Vanderbilt is undefeated for the first time in I don't know, or 5-0 for the first time in several years. I think I was either a teenager or maybe younger the last time. Um, Now their schedule was kind of soft, but I mean, you play who's on your schedule. They could say that about us as far as before the Georgia game. Um, and we have a loss. So Vanderbilt beat South Carolina at home, which I don't think will mean as much in the long run as it does right now. Um, and I think did they have another? I don't know whether or not they had another SEC matchup. Let's check it out. Okay, so no, that was their only SEC game. Um, they beat Virginia Tech on the road again, 44-20. I mean, South Carolina, Virginia Tech played each other week one, and I wasn't thoroughly impressed. I was at that game actually. It was here in Atlanta. I was not impressed, but by either team. I know going into the season, Sellers had some Heisman hope, but he's injured, and I just don't see that game meaning as much down the road as it does now. So we'll see. This will be a true test. I'm hoping that Alabama can pull it out. I believe they will. They did give a little bit of bulletin board material, which last year you did win that game, so you come in with a little more confidence than you probably would have had otherwise. But he said Diego Pavia said that if we play our game, it won't be close, which I think is, I don't think you should say that about any SEC opponent, period. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens on Saturday. Roll Tide on that. Um, I got to the Oregon game. Let's see. That's what else? Week 5. Florida State did get upset by Virginia. Um, 46-38. I think that one went to just one overtime. Um, Florida State kind of looked out of sorts in that game. Defensively, they just couldn't make a lot of stops. Virginia scored in every quarter, um, including 11 points in overtime. Yeah, Florida State just didn't look like the same dominant Florida State that we've seen in the weeks prior, and they were coming off a bye, if I'm not mistaken. But you look at Florida State's schedule now. The Alabama win was big, but other than that, they had played two cupcakes, if I'm not mistaken. They played, I'm guessing it stands for East Texas A&M, and they played Kent. Uh, and they scored over 130 points over those two games, and they only allowed 13. So when that happens, it's easy to look at just the results and just say that they are a team to be feared and things like that. But when you get into league play, anything can happen. And Florida State, I mean Virginia just wanted it more. I haven't watched that whole game. Okay, so it did go to two overtime. Um, TCU did end up losing to Arizona State. Arizona State is 4-1. Houston undefeated beat Oregon State at home. They are 4-0. Ohio State. Uh, this game was kind of closer than it appeared than the final score, but the final score was 24-6 over Washington. Um, it was 7-3 at halftime. So they kind of pulled away at the end, but it was nip and tuck there. Moving into the second half. LSU, another team that I think is kind of fraudulent, but we'll see. Lost to Ole Miss on the road, 24-19. That was Ole Miss' first loss. They were number 4. Ole Miss was number 13. We covered the Alabama Georgia game. Auburn with his second straight loss, loses to Texas A&M, 16-10. Auburn's offense just can't seem to get off the ground at the moment. We'll see what happens, but I don't think that was their last loss. I'll just say it that way. Indiana, who deserves respect, a 20-15 win over Iowa. Indiana is 2-0 in the Big Ten. They're number 11, well, they were number 11 at this time. I'll go over the rankings, the this week's rankings in a minute. Um, Tennessee did end up beating Mississippi State, but that one was close. That one had to go to overtime as well. A lot of overtime games. Georgia Tech, my boys, they did beat Wake Forest, but that one was close. That one went to overtime, and Georgia Tech won by a point. Vandy beat Utah State 55-35. Um, Missouri beat Massachusetts. That's not nothing. Illinois did beat USC. That was USC's first like big test this season, and they failed. Um, Notre Dame beat Arkansas 56-13. That coach ended up getting Arkansas's coach ended up getting fired. Bobby Petrino named interim in the meantime, and this is his second time coaching that team. That's kind of funny. Um, BYU did beat Colorado 24-21. I think after that game, Coach Prime said that Colorado is just not at the moment just not ready to win the big games. Um, and he said something about it being weird. Uh, I saw some articles begging for him to get out of Colorado and just move on, get somewhere else. I do think if he got to a team with a stronger infrastructure, he could do some damage. I think that as a leader of men, I think he's elite. I just think that he needs the personnel and the staff to be able to compete with these schools. Minnesota beat Rutgers. Syracuse got thumped by Duke after a week after beating Clemson, I think. Louisville 4-0 beat Pittsburgh 34-27. Cincinnati got to 3-1 after beating Kansas. Um, Kansas State 34-20 over Central Florida. Uh, that's all of the big games. Navy did end up beating Rice 21-13. Navy is 4-0. Um, Kennesaw State beat Middle Tennessee 24-16. Um, Kennesaw State's 3-2 on the season. Congratulations on that. That's okay. South Carolina beat Kentucky 35-13. Kentucky is 2-2 on the season. Don't look the same as they did like the past 2 years. And you hate to see that. You hate to see them going in the other direction. Um, but it is what it is. You got it in this league. In these leagues, you have to get better. Um, let's cover some NBA before we get into the NFL. Actually, let's talk about the rankings. So this week, Mm, it's a little shake up because number three, four, and five did end up losing this past weekend. So Ohio State is number one, Oregon is number two, Miami is number three, Ole Miss number four, Oklahoma rounds out the top five. Alabama did move up 7 spots to number 10. Texas is number nine. Indiana did move up to number eight. Um, Penn State didn't drop very much because they played the number like 6 team in the country. LSU did drop to number 13. And that being the second highest, second biggest drop. Um, Behind only Florida State, who dropped 10 spots to number 18. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, the SEC has 10 schools ranked at the moment. One, two, three, four, five. Yes, 10 schools ranked at the moment. Just dominance, just straight up dominance. And that just goes to show that anything can happen in that league, and it usually does. Anything usually does happen. Um, but let's talk about the NBA. This is I think the preseason starts Thursday, which is tomorrow at the time of this recording. LeBron is starting the camp off with an injury. Uh, I think he has like some nerve damage in the glute. Um, but I did see him on Kai Cenat's stream. That was pretty cool to see. Shout out to Kai. And the whole Mafia Thon. That whole thing was just dope to watch. Um, and it's dope to see a young black man, changing other young black men's lives. Uh, yeah, that was just dope to see. That whole thing was dope to see. It was cool to see LeBron on the stream. If I'm not mistaken, that was his first time doing such a thing. Uh, but other than that, Al Horford did sign with the Warriors in the past couple of days. Steve Kerr is in the last year of his contract, and I think he's pushing that off the negotiations off until next season or the end of the season. Um, Jovic is that Nikola Jovic. He signed a rookie extension with the Heat. If I'm not mistaken, he did pretty well. Yeah, he averaged a career high 10.7 points last season. Um, he did a decent job. He is how tall is he? 6'10". Yeah, I think he did pretty well. He was a first round pick. Um, yeah, I think that'll work out well for the Heat. Uh, Quentin Grimes signed a $8.7 million deal with my Sixers. Speaking of, there's no timeline for the return of Joel Embiid or Paul George to start the season. So I have no words on that. Um, Dorian Finney-Smith is likely out for the start of the season. He has ankle surgery during the offseason. Um, I think I'm gonna leave it there. I did see Kyrie putting up some shots. I didn't see him making any kind of basketball moves. So I think he's just at that part of his rehab. But it was cool to see him on the court. Like I said, I didn't see him dribble one time, but I saw him putting up a lot of shots. So that was cool to see. I'm praying for his speedy recovery. Uh, let's move on to the NFL. Okay, let's go over some scores. The Seahawks did beat the Cardinals last Thursday. The Steelers beat the Vikings over in Dublin, Ireland. Um, it was a messy game until the end, I guess. It was weird. The Falcons bounced back and won 34-27 at home against the Commanders. Uh, what's his name? Um, geez. Uh, Jaden Daniels. I don't know why I was about to call him Jalen something. Jaden Daniels did not play that game. Marcus Mariota played his second straight game. Um, and I mean, Debo scored again. You know, they had some. It got pretty interesting, especially toward the end. But the Falcons did pull away and win. Bills remain undefeated with a 31-19 win over the Saints. And the Saints remain defeated, 0-4 on the season. Um, the Lions improved to 3-1 after a 34-10 win over the Browns. Um, Scoring 34 points over the Browns is impressive to me. I think the Browns defense is great. The Patriots smoked the Panthers 42-13. Um, Giants handed the Chargers their first loss on the season, uh, 21-18. The Eagles handed the Buccaneers their first loss of the season, but and remain undefeated, 31-25. The Texans got their first win of the season, 26-0 over the Titans, the division opponent. Um, Rams handed the Colts their first loss on the season, 27-20. Uh, Jaguars handed my 49ers the first loss of the season in a very ugly game for Brock Purdy. 26-21 in a game that the Jaguars were begging to lose, in my opinion. The only thing was the punt return for a touchdown. Like other than that, I didn't see anything spectacular offensively from the Jaguars. Um, Brock Purdy had three turnovers himself. Uh, had two very questionable throws for picks. Well, one bounced off of C-Mac's hands, and I think the other one bounced off of Lyman's hands, but just the where he's placing the ball just didn't seem advantageous for the offense. Um, the Chiefs improved to 2-2 after beating the Ravens, 37-20. Another ugly game for the Ravens. They lost a couple players on defense, a few players on defense, and Lamar is out for up to 3 weeks, I believe. He's doubtful for this week. Um, they're saying he's gonna try to give it a go on Sunday, but all signs point to him not being able to go. Um, they got a tough stretch coming up. I, I was hoping that the Ravens was gonna be like that. This was gonna be the season for the Ravens, as far as the AFC, but it's not looking great for that pick. The Bears beat the Raiders on a blocked field goal, 25-24. Gino threw another three picks. I don't know what's going on with that. The Packers and the Cowboys, like probably my most, besides the 49ers, of course, my most anticipated game of the weekend, um, ended in a 40-40 tie that scored 80 points that game. Um, the Packers defense just wasn't as effective as they had been this season so far. Um, and the Cowboys were electric. Dak, even without CD Lamb, put up an amazing performance. Um, I'm not a Cowboys fan by any means, but you got to give credit where credit is due. Um, the Broncos, there was a pair of Monday night games. Excuse me. The Broncos beat the Wobegotten Bengals 28-3. Uh, Jake Brown is just having a bad shake at the moment. I don't see it getting much better for him. So they may be in the quarterback business soon. But you hear that the Bengals don't really make deals and those kind of things. They kind of stick it out to the end with their players. So we'll see what happens there. The Dolphins won the game, but lost their dynamic playmaker. They won 27-21, their first division win and first win on the season. But Tyreek is out for the season with a dislocated knee, and he tore a few ligaments in that knee as well. Prayers go out to him for his recovery. I'm hoping that he comes back at least 90% of himself, because I think 90% of Tyreek is still faster than 90% of the league. So, I'm hoping uh that he recovers well and he's okay. Um, Xavier Howard retired today, I guess. Saying that family is first. He was out for practice today, but they cited it as a personal matter. But we found out later on that he did end up retiring. Um, he was 32. He played for the let's see, he he played for Miami up until this season. He was drafted in 2016. Uh, yeah. Didn't have great 2025. So far I don't know. The abrupt retirement is always kind of throw me for a loop. I don't know. That's I wonder if it's something deeper than what that is. Um, I want to talk about Alabama's record against all the SEC teams, and then I want to mention a couple more things, and then we're gonna get out of here. The thing that I was saying earlier about Kirby Smart, and how I don't want people like kind of piling on to Kirby, uh, because it's not like just a Kirby thing. It wasn't just a Mark Richt thing, and Nick Saban. In the series, Alabama has, mm, I think, 45 wins to Georgia's 26. Um, in their head to head, and they got four ties, which I'm so glad that they got that out of college football. I'm glad that I never got to see a tie in college. But Alabama has dominated the SEC, like just overall. This isn't like just a new thing. This wasn't just a Nick Saban thing. The Alabama has had two of the greatest coaches in college football history. So I mean, you can't expect for a lot of cracks in that armor. Um, so yeah, I don't. It's not a new thing where Georgia is always losing to Alabama. Alabama has won almost 20 more games than Georgia has against them. So that is what that is. I hate that people made it or turned it into a Kirby thing, which I understand. I do get it because he's the coach at the moment and he has won two championships, one of them against Alabama. He has, done great things. He has turned that program into a powerhouse. But at the end of the day, Alabama is still Alabama, and Alabama has been, you know, who they are for several, several decades. Um, so moving on from that, this is kind of random, but it's just been on my mind. Um, uh, Brian Kelly. Um, I okay. I'll start off with a quote that always stuck out to me, and I credit Carrie Champion with this quote because she's the first person I heard it from. Um, and she was talking about black people. We don't enjoy the luxury of mediocrity. Um, and as I look, like I don't know if, well, I know for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a black coach would not have gotten the leash as long as Brian Kelly's has been, nor would he have gotten the chances that Brian Kelly has gotten. Um, Brian Kelly he was at a prestigious university like Notre Dame, never won a championship, brought, the team to national championships before, but got thumped in the playoffs. Uh, no national championships, nothing to, you have the Dabo Sweeneys of the world, you got the Ryan Days of the world. Urban Myers, Nick Saban, of course, Kirby Smart. Uh, all of these coaches were able to win championships with their teams, but Notre Dame, especially being an independent, um, was never able to win the big game under Brian Kelly. Um, and then after he leaves Notre Dame, he goes to another prestigious university in LSU that where the expectation is championships or championship contention. Um, and he has just failed again and again to meet that mark. And I just don't understand how, and I'm not calling for his job. I don't want that to be the thing, but I just don't understand how he gets all of these chances that many coaches, especially black coaches, it wouldn't even be entertained in those cases. You swap Brian Kelly for Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders would have been out of there. Deion Sanders would not have been the LSU coach up to this point, losing what 3 or 4 of your opening games, um, never making it to the playoff uh, in your tenure. It I don't know if they make it to the playoff this year. They were number 4 this past weekend and got beat by Ole Miss. Um, you got a supposedly generational talent at quarterback, and you just and the offense is struggling. That makes no sense to me. I just don't get why um Brian Kelly keeps getting the opportunities that he's getting, and all he does after a loss especially is just go and throw a pity party in the press conferences, and I just don't get it. And my I have a very small audience, very small voice. I'm not expecting for this word to mean anything to anybody, but I just think that um I just wish that black coaches would get the same looks as people like Brian Kelly, as Brian Kelly and people like Brian Kelly. Um, and I'll leave it there. Um, that's pretty much all I got this week. I will maybe get back this weekend, or if not this weekend, the next week. I know the 49ers play the Rams tomorrow, so I will be tuned into that. Um, and the Alabama Vandy game is a big game coming up. And again, the basketball preseason starts this week, so and the playoffs for baseball have started. Um, and the last thing I saw about baseball was the Yankees tied up their wild card series with the Red Sox. Um, so they are at 1-1. Other than that, I don't really have much. My Cardinals were in playoff contention during the last episode and have did not win a game since. So I was dealing with that as far as baseball goes. Um, Ghost of Yote comes out this week, or I think it comes out today actually, and so does Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for the Switch. I think both of those are on their way here. Um, Other than that, I haven't played anything new. Um, yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. I think that's all I got. So until next time, I thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you all.